The most thrilling, spine-tingling series ever.
From the pages of R.L. Stein's best-selling books,
And the screams go on forever and ever.
We now return to Goosebumps.
Greetings, Goosebumps fans, young and old, big and small, living dead and undead. Welcome back to the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Isaiah Vargas, and I'm joined by my good buddies Bjorn Pelnick and Nick Shaw. We are the Goosebumps Crew, and we're back to talk some Goosebumps. If this is your first time joining us here on the Goosebumps Crew Podcast, I want to sincerely welcome you all. If you are or have ever been a fan of the popular Goosebumps series of books or the monster franchise that those books spawned, and I have a feeling that this podcast is going to be right up your alley, I guarantee it. Because as I always say, me, Bjorn, and Nick are some of the biggest Goosebumps nerds on the entire planet. We can talk about Goosebumps for hours on end, and that's exactly what we do here on this podcast. Every week, we have a brand new episode talking about everything Goosebumps, from the books, TV shows, movies, video games, merchandise, whatever it is. If it has Goosebumps in the name, we're going to talk about it so much that it's going to be like one of those scenarios where you hear a word so many times that that word doesn't sound real anymore. That's going to be Goosebumps. That's how much we're going to talk about it. So, with all that said, if you end up liking today's episode, as always, make sure you leave a like and comment. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the Goosebumps Crew YouTube channel and hit the bell notification so you can get notifications when new episodes go up every Wednesday on YouTube. But if you're just dying for new Goosebumps Crew episodes and you want to get them early, the audio-only versions of new episodes go up Tuesdays over on our audio platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. And of course, you can follow the Goosebumps Crew over on social media at Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. You can also follow Bjorn and Nick at Goosebumps Aussie Fan and Shawn, respectively, on their social medias and their YouTubes. All those links are down in the description below, so check them out. Join the Goosebumps Crew today and become a crew member. We thank you in advance for your support. And guys, we are excited. And you want to know why we're excited? Because it is officially October. It is officially the spookiest month of the year, and Halloween is upon us. And that is why today we are happy to announce that Goosebumps Crew's GooseTober is now in session. We got tons of awesome Halloween treats in store for you guys this month, including not one, but 2 new Goosebumps Crew episodes on the week of Halloween. So you guys are going to be getting a lot of Goosebumps goodness this October, and we got some really cool stuff planned. Today, however, we are going to be starting off just a little bit more casual. We're going to be doing yet another top 10 list. Ooh, because as we always talk about here on the podcast, if any of you out there are frequent listeners, we always talk about the 90s Goosebumps television series and how much we love that show. I mean, it's an iconic a cult classic show. I mean, I feel like anybody who's anybody has at least heard of Goosebumps, the TV show, in some way, even if it's just the theme song. Like, the theme song itself is iconic among definitely 90s kids. But we love the TV show, and we talk about it a lot here on the podcast. And all the different episodes, the different books that were adapted for the TV series. And the only episodes in the TV series that were not adapted from a pre-existing book were the trilogy episodes, the trilogy, as it were. But every other episode was based on a Goosebumps book or short story. But there were so many Goosebumps books, and many of them, including the ones at the time, of course, never got episode adaptations. And even with movies and the new TV series, you're bound to see usually the same few Goosebumps stories adapted for the screen. But there's a lot of Goosebumps stories that were not adapted for the small screen. And today we're going to be doing something a little fun. We're going to count down our top 10 books that we would have loved to seen as episodes of the 90s Goosebumps television series. Now, for the sake of discussion, we are not bound by any time period or any series. We decided to choose from whatever series, even if it's modern, even if at the time of recording this episode, the recent Goosebumps book is Night of the Living Mummy. Night of the Living Mummy. You could put that in your list and be like, I would have loved to see that as an episode.
That would be
of the
terrifying.
Series, even though it didn't even exist until 30 years later. So,
hey, Harold Stein's done Night of the Living everything, so there could be a Night of the Living Mummy.
Night of the Giant everything.
That's what I mean.
I know.
Giant nickel that attacks you. I don't know.
Giant nickel. Oh, man. So we are going to be counting down our top 10 picks for episodes or books that we would have loved to see as 90s show episodes. Like I said, any series, any time period, we just went hog wild with it. And we're going to see what we chose. So I might as well start things off. And my number 10 is it's sort of a joke a little bit, but I'm going to be incredibly honest. You know, we talk about this book all the time. I really would have been interested to see Chicken as an episode. And I'm not joking. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm not joking. I'm actually serious. This is my number 10 pick. I honestly would have loved to see Chicken as a 90s show episode, and I think they could have done it. I think it would have been one of those episodes where they had the really weird animal effects. You know what I'm talking about. Like
the weird base on the creature. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that sort of thing. I think they totally could have done it. I would have loved to see this. Like I said, it's more of a joke. I would have loved to see it just because I know I would have laughed at it. But
just imagine that though, like a chicken like episode like that actually got made, and they did that weird CGI effect, and then like I could just imagine if it was like a 2-parter episode and they got like a VHS release and everything. Like, could you imagine if that was like
2-parter episode and it's the series finale? Like, just imagine that for a second. Like, this should have been the series finale of Goosebumps.
Jeez,
the last episode, Chicken adaptation. Like I said, there's not really much to this number 10 pick. I just would have loved to seen it because I know it would have been funny. So my number 10 is Chicken. Bjorn, what do you got for number 10?
My number 10, I've actually got Beware the Snowman. I think this would have been a very different change of pace for a Goosebumps adaptation like episode. Just the fact, literally the mere fact that it's set in the Arctic Circle, I think would have been really interesting. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we would be, because like obviously Goosebumps, you're always in like a suburban town or something, or you might be like on a farm, you know, but I think this would have been a very different scenery, you know, and I think it would have been very interesting to have this in the Goosebumps TV series because it would have been, just different, you know, something that, you know, would have been a breath of fresh air, you know, and, personally, I think it is one of the most underrated Goosebumps books. I think this is a great story. I think we've agreed on this, you know, and I strongly believe that Beware the Snowman would have been a really, really cool episode to have existed.
Cool episode.
Cool episode. I like legitimately, like, I just think it would have been very, very different, you know, like, I think the setting of it and everything, you know, it just would have been something unique to the 90s TV series. So yeah, I'm going to go, you know, not much too much. That's honestly the reason why I picked it was because of the setting. And that's why I think this would have made a good episode. So my number 10, you know, we're starting off with Beware the Snowman. So something a little different.
That's a good pick. I definitely agree. Nick, what about you and your number 10 pick?
Well, funny enough, that's why I said, you kidding me, because Chicken. I that is no joke. And everybody knows I think it would have been freaking terrifying to see a human-sized chicken with a human head just charging at you. So yes, Chicken is my number 10. Not much to say about that because we already talked about it. But I just thought it was really funny that somehow we had the same number 10. I didn't think this would be on anybody's list. So I was like, I'm going to be the only one with Chicken.
No, man. when I was making my list in preparation for this episode, I knew that Chicken had to be one of my one of my picks.
Oh, yeah, had to be. So when Bjorn, like before we started our podcast, when Bjorn was like, "Oh man, did anybody put? I really hope when you guys put Chicken on there." I just was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to leave it as a surprise. But no,
funny you say that.
Two of us now have Chicken. So interesting.
Okay, it's my honorable mention then.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just like I just imagine it. Like I said, we already mentioned it, but like just the sort of like shitty '90s effects that they were doing with the Goosebumps, especially in like the third and fourth season, with like heads on animal bodies. Like I just imagine a whole episode with that. Or even like it's just a chicken with like a voiceover, like an ADR voiceover. That's the whole episode.
Imagine if they put like what was the effects from was it Let's Get Invisible? What we talk about sometimes, where it's like just eyes in the mouth, like on the back of the head.
Oh, my best friend's invisible. Yeah, no.
Just imagine putting the eyes in the mouth on the chicken.
Oh, that would be the scariest episode for me right there. A whole episode with that effect on a chicken face, like that would be number 1 scariest episode.
I just imagine the screen going black at the end, and you just hear a or something like as the screen goes black. And then the Goosebump credits roll. Oh my god! I don't know why I'm just doing that. Like for some reason. Oh no!
I mean, number 10 for me, Chicken was definitely more of a joke entry for me. But I really am serious. I would have.
Mine was the only like legitimate one. Like I actually think this would be.
Let's go on to another.
Mine was not a joke. Mine was not a joke. That was legit. My number 10. Not even
it's a joke, but it's also not a joke. Let's put it like that. It's a joke, but not really.
Is a joke, but as me wanting it as an episode is not a joke.
Well,
I admit I'd want to see it. Sure.
To get more into, you'd want to see it, right? Even if it's a terrible episode, you would want to see it. But let's get back into the more serious territory. My number 9 pick is actually going to be Egg Monsters from Mars. I've heard mixed opinions on the book as a whole. I personally like it. I wish that most of the book didn't take place in like just one singular room. I feel like it got a little boring in the second half, despite more of the like suspenseful stuff. But just the idea of the egg monsters is really cool, and I think it really could have worked as like a nice alien sort of episode of the TV show. There was never really a straight alien episode. I don't know if you guys.
I was just actually thinking that as you said that.
Yeah, it's like aliens were mostly used for twist endings. So like Welcome to Camp Nightmare, Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns, Best Friends Invisible, like those were like twist endings where it's revealed they're aliens. But a whole episode with alien creatures, I think would really work. If you had to twist my arm and choose, I actually think Egg Monsters from Mars would be more interesting. I know that there's people who would probably put Body Squeezers on there. But I don't know. I'm not a super big fan of Body Squeezers in general.
I was about to say I didn't much care for the Body Squeezer books anyway.
Yeah, it was
Earth Geeks
weird.
would have been a good one though.
Yeah, I think so too. But like if you focused on, even if it was a half-hour episode, just like egg creatures, like that sort of thing, I think that could have been a really interesting episode of the show. I think they could have been done in terms of effects. I think it could have been done because they've done like blobbish creatures. It could even had like little puppets, like like little like.
Like they did with the sponge, the potato.
Yeah, or even like mini versions of what the blob looked like. Like I feel like if you made it a little more yellow and took some of the pink veins off, or even made the veins like green, you know what I mean? I think they could have been done. But yeah, Egg Monsters from Mars, I would have liked to seen it in terms of like I said, like a sci-fi alien episode of the TV show, and that's my number 9 pick.
Cool. Well, my number 9 pick is Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls. We all love our zombies. Okay? I'm a huge sucker for that. I know Welcome to Dead House was kind of like zombie vampire things. We don't really have confirmation, do we, on that? What they were. But we'll just say they're zombies. Very Night of the Living Dead-esque. So Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls has become a very iconic book. It even had a re-release, and I just feel like it has become a bit of a fan favorite over the years. I always liked the book when I was a kid, and I think it's got a very creepy atmosphere, like on the the hill with the fog and everything. I just can see that playing out really well. It kind of gives me that vibe, even from like the Haunted Master 2 when they go to the graveyard. I have that same kind of feel when I'm reading this book, of them actually at the graveyard and everything. I get that same, and obviously made famous now too, especially with the Goosebump movies. So yeah, I'm putting Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls at number 9. Solid. I think it's a great book. It's very creepy, and yeah, I believe that people love a zombie story, and yeah, I'm going to put it there. I know the book came out in '99. Was it? Oh no, '98 towards the end.
I think it was towards the end of '98. So like it would have been coming out around the time that the series actually ended.
November '98.
Yep. So that was when Deep Trouble premiered on Fox Kids. So yeah, that was the same time that.
So this could have been the finale episode. They could have ended the show literally.
I don't know. With how bad the production quality was near the end, do we really want to say they want to take something as cool as Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls and
stick it there?
Kind of
like just imagine for a moment,
now, like the beginning of the series and Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls was out at the time. Okay, yeah, go for it because an epic.
Well, just imagine for a moment that like the Goosebumps TV show did not like suffer in quality as it went on. Like it didn't, get through those budget constraints and whatnot. Like, and it did this is sort of like what this exercise is for, is like, what if season 4 wasn't just 4 episodes? Like, what if it kept going? Like that sort of thing. I think Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls could have been interesting. The only thing though is that it's not really much of a zombie story. Despite the awesome cover, it's more of like a ghost-esque.
Ghosty spirit. Yeah. Like, the story, like
if
just
they
like
recontextualize it as a zombie story, though, I think that could have been great. Because that's another thing. There's not many Goosebumps zombie episodes either. Zombies and aliens. We had a vampire episode. We had 2 werewolves. We had multiple monsters and ghosts. But zombies, we had Dead House, and aliens, like I said, were just basically twist ending. They could have used more zombies.
Agreed that the movie just looked at the cover and went, "Oh yeah, zombies." I mean, yeah, they're more like ghostly, like spirit things. I mean, I must admit, I like the scene where like it comes up and like it says he's like tasting the wind or something. Like, remember that part where he's kind of like? I just imagine it being like.
You know what I think of when I think of what the Graveyard Ghouls could have been? I don't know if you guys have ever watched the episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? I think it was called like Tale of the Water Demons. That episode has like ghosts, but they look a lot like really wet zombies. Like I imagine like something like that when it comes to like zombie ghosts.
Zombie ghost looking things. Like they're ghosts, but they looked kind of like zombies. And I think that's sort of what was going on in the book. But yeah, like that's how I imagined it anyway. And I was reading it. I was like, obviously they're ghostly figures, but they look rotting. They look ghostly. So I don't know. I think they could have done but yeah, I imagine the effect maybe wouldn't have looked very good, in the Goosebumps series, but it would have just been nice to see it. Like I love the book. I think it would have been a really cool episode. But I feel like it would be maybe one that would be benefited to be made now. I think it would work a lot better now with today's technology and everything. So like, let's say they brought them into, season 2 or 3 of the new Goosebumps show, and if they did it right. I think it would work better.
That's the thing about this new Disney Plus show, is they have the capabilities now with CGI and stuff like that to really do these books justice and bring these characters to life. Like a lot of the books that we're talking about today, probably couldn't have been done back then because of the budget constraints. But now, like you can make that stuff, happen. Like I think to the Go Eat Worms episode of the new show, like that sort of thing could not be done in the 90s series. So I will give him that. That's why I like that episode. It went for it. It went weird. It made a freaking worm creature made of worm. It wasn't a big giant phallus worm. It was like a creature made of worms. And like, honestly, if that was in the original book, I'd probably like that more. I'm just saying. So, But no, I think Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns, Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls. This is what happens when you have books named so
Attack of the
similarly.
With similar sort of like
Attack of the Mutant Graveyard.
Yeah, Attack of the Night of the Living, that sort of thing. You get confused. I think Attack of the Graveyard Ghouls is a good pick. I agree wholeheartedly, actually. It's not on my list. There are a few other Series 2000 books, I guess spoiling, there are a few other Series 2000 books in my list that overtook it. But I would have liked to see that too. I agree. So, good pick. Nick, you're number 9.
Oh, well, I'm not in the Series 2000 or original 62 with this one. It's A Night in Werewolf Woods.
Whoa.
I love werewolf stories. Even the Give Yourself Goosebumps where you had like 20 bajillion endings you could choose from. It really, some of them were good, some of them were bad, but the overall story for Night in Werewolf Woods, I thought was a pretty interesting concept. So, did you guys ever get around to reading, any of the Give Yourselves?
I haven't read many of the Give Yourselves, but I've heard that some of them have good prompts and like an overall story that works. But it'd be really interesting if a Give Yourself book did get adapted for a TV episode. Like they just, I don't know. I feel like that'd be really interesting if there was even just one.
Done? It would work now with it would have worked with like DVD. So let's say they shot multiple different, because obviously, you turn to page 36 if to see this happen or da-da-da. What if they actually shot every different ending, like every different thing, and when it comes up to it on the fucking DVD, it literally has like options and you can choose to go to it or not. And you can go, oh, enter, I want to go there and I want to see what happens. You know what I mean? Like that could have worked really well with
or like a CD-ROM, like how they did like Escape from Horrorland. Like they could have done something like that. Cause I remember Jude was telling us about the Choose Your Own Nightmare CD-ROM and like something like that for Give Yourself Goosebumps would have been cool. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. That's really interesting.
No, there's another Netflix. I can't remember what the Netflix series was, but they did something similar though. Like it was something to do with the Undertaker from WWE, and I can't remember what the thing was now. It's like his Halloween thing or something that they did. But anyway, it actually it's interactive. Like it had you choose, like what do you want the New Day to do in terms of with the Undertaker or something like that. It's kind of old and I forgot about what the whole concept was, but it made me think about that as I was making this list. I was like, oh, they could just do an interactive episode of Goosebumps and give you, like, at this point, it'll pause and it'll tell you choose one of these scenarios, and then you choose it, and then it plays the next scene that they filmed for that. I was like, oh, that'd be really cool.
That's how it would work. That's how it would work.
Definitely.
So, they could totally do that now. Even on Netflix.
Yeah, that's all stuff that they could do now that you really couldn't do then with, obviously it's a television show, so it'd be a little more difficult. But the thing is, if they did it on Netflix or Disney Plus, like they are now releasing them ahead of time, now it's not such a big deal. Now you can do that kind of stuff. So absolutely they could do all these Give Yourselves now with the different endings or different paths to choose.
I'm surprised with how much Fifi's used. They haven't done a freaking Please Don't Feed the
Oh, right? Yeah.
Well, that's
I don't
the
know
thing
what the love is for that vampire dog, but Jesus.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, why haven't they done one for that yet?
Yeah. But definitely if they did it for the 90s show, they would have to they could adapt those books, but they would have to do a linear story. They would have to get rid of the choose your own thing unless they did it for a game, or if they did it now.
Well, unless the writers reading it were just like, I like this path best. Let's put this. And then I'll take this path and put this in here.
Yeah, they would have to either choose a linear path.
So good about. They were really good about picking certain things out of the original story to use for an actual show, but then changing things that needed to be changed, or that just didn't think would project well on live action compared to a book. They were pretty good about that, and we talk a lot about in the past, The Haunted Mask 2 being a prime example of that, but the things that they changed for that episode compared to the book, which made the episode a lot more favorable for fans rather than the book. Nothing against the book. I mean, it's still good, but the episode was far superior.
There's times when a book is an episode improves on a book, and there's sometimes when an episode is inferior. So it just depends on who's adapting it.
Exactly right.
But very interesting. Give yourself for number 9.
Number 9.
Very interesting. Well, moving on to my number 8. So there are tons of camp stories in Goosebumps. And only one of the 4 camp stories in the original 62 were, and if you count Series 2000, there's 2 more. So there's like 6 in the original 90s run. But I didn't want to choose too many because a lot of them were not adapted. The only one that was adapted for the TV show was Welcome to Camp Nightmare, the first one. But my number 8 is going to be Horror Camp Jelly Jam.
Yay!
Yeah. I think this is a pretty interesting book. I'm kind of like in the middle on it. I enjoy it enough. I think it's decent. But I like the concept of going to a camp where it's sort of like a survival of the fittest sort of thing. It's different from Camp Nightmare, where it's just sort of the disappearances of the camp, the campers, and then you're kind of like going crazy. Here it's like, they're trying to get you to be the best, and the best, gets sent off to a horrible fate.
No one ever
Jelly
wants.
Jam down below. I also, if they did this in the 90s series, I would be so intrigued to see like how they do King Jelly Jam, because it's a lot like the Blob.
I was going to say, I'm here to get the Blob treatment.
Exactly. It would be like way smaller. It would not look like jelly at all. It would just look probably look like someone in a big blanket, like a big blanket fort.
I wouldn't.
But yeah, I mean, not much to say on this one. I do like the Goosebumps camp stories. I think some are better than others. Like I said, I'm in the middle on this one. It's probably in like the back half for those camp stories for me, because I like Camp Nightmare and Ghost Camp and Camp Cold Lake. I think those are better. But I would have liked to see Horror Camp Jelly Jam as an episode. Like I said, for the concept and just to see how they would do King Jelly Jam in this book. So that's my number 8, Horror Camp Jelly Jam.
Oh, my number 8. Well, I put this one in here because, well, it's like the most iconic episode like ever. And there was a third book. And not much to say on it other than just, I mean, it would have been nice to get another Haunted Mask book. So I'm going to put Screams of the Haunted Mask in there because, guys, like, I mean, we all love the episodes. They're very iconic, as we know. And I mean, you still have Carly Beth, so it's not like it would have been a new character or whatever. So I feel like just to have, kept the hype train going, keep the ball rolling on this story, I would have thrown that in there just for the mere fact that, hey, we need another Haunted Mask episode, all right? We need another one. So I'm throwing it in at number 8. Okay, but I don't want to say too much on it because I have a feeling it could be on someone else's list. So that's all I'm going to say other than that. I think the series needed to have that third one because Slappy had, 3 episodes? I feel like Haunted Mask was 3 as well.
And the thing that the show did really well back in the 90s were those Haunted Mask episodes. Like because maybe they made them 2-parters and like we talked about, they put a little more effort into those, but they really did the Haunted Mask episodes and the Night of the Living Dummy episodes very well. Even beyond the 2-parters, we had Night of the Living Dummy 2 and we had Bride of the Living Dummy, and both are fan favorite episodes. So they really knew what to do with those characters. So it would have been fantastic to see a Haunted Mask 3 of some type, whether that would have been Scream of the Haunted Mask, which, I believe was supposed to be the Goosebumps Gold Haunted Mask Lives originally. The story just took over into the Scream of the Haunted Mask. So yeah, it would have been great. I would have loved it.
I agree. I just feel like it needed to be on the list because it's another Haunted Mask book, and I think it would have been nice to just get one. Honestly, that's a good one too.
I actually liked it. I mean, the ending was okay. I think the lead up to it was better.
Yeah.
But well, even more
that's where the writers would come in for the show and they could change it if they wanted to, if they felt there's a better ending they could have made for it.
Agree, but like we say, there are some books that weren't great, but the episodes were better. Night of the Living Dummy 3, huge example of that. The episode was so much better than the book.
I think You Can't Scare Me. I think the episode's better than the book. I do think Haunted Mask 2 is better than the book. And I like the book, but I think Haunted Mask 2 is better than the book. I think it's because they made Steve less of an asshole in the episode than he was in the book. Steve was a major douchebag in the book.
It might have resonated well on screen. You know what I mean? It might have done well. It's kind of like, I don't know, when you read It. You read the book and you're like, the ending is so weird and everything. And it translates super well on the big screen. You know what I mean? Like the three lights, and it's just weird. It didn't work well. Like when you're reading it, you're like, okay. But when you see it on screen, you're like, does it really translate well? But then there's books that can be terrible, but they might translate well onto the screen. So the Haunted Mask, Scream of the Haunted Mask, might have been better as an episode than it was the book. So who knows?
Well, and I think the thing about adaptations is that you can take stuff from the original source, but sometimes you got to change stuff because sometimes the original stuff isn't always that great. So change if you can. Please change. Like sometimes don't even be like just an exact copy. You know what I mean? Like when they do remakes nowadays or stuff like that, it's like, or I wouldn't say nowadays, but like back then when they were like doing an onslaught of movie remakes, especially in the horror genre, so many of them are just like I think of like not just the Psycho remake, but the Omen remake is the exact same as the original movie. Like it almost shot for shot. So like, God forbid, please do something different and especially fix any flaws when you do an adaptation. So with that brief tangent out of the way.
That's
Nick,
my number.
what do you got for number 8, Nick?
Oh, my number 8 came off of a short story in the Tales to Give You Goosebumps of the Scarecrow. Because again, I don't feel there's a lot of Scarecrow stories. And while it's a short story, we all know that the 90s show did adaptations of short stories into episodes. So I would have liked to have seen that one. Now, I don't know how familiar you guys are with that one. It was one I had to actually brush up on again myself because it's been so long since I read any of the Tales to Give You Goosebumps books. But it's pretty good if you haven't read it. And it's not like the main focus of a scarecrow, but the concept being like to basically break this down without making a long-winded paragraph essay about it. The concept being the kids basically get this scarecrow that sees that it has like a scarf and what was the other, had gloves and some other stuff, that these kids really wanted. It's like pretty much like, oh my God, I can't believe the scarecrow has this scarf I wanted, or it has this hat that I wanted, and whatever. So the whole concept is they get it. Oh, my throat's starting to hurt. Of course, stuff starts to happen, but then you find out at the end somebody wanted the gloves and they took the gloves or whatever, and it was a whole like trick that these kids were playing on this one kid who wanted the gloves or whatever. And the whole story ended with like, well, how'd you make the scarecrow smile? And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And they kind of turn around, and sure enough, the scarecrow's like looking down at him, smiling. I was like, well, that's a creepy concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
like memories actually. I remember.
So without giving like everything, because I mean, it gets a short story, you're not gonna have everything into it. But I think if they would have elaborated a bit more into the story, made it like a full blown book, I think it would have been a pretty cool idea. And that kind of got me thinking it would have been a really good episode.
20-minute, one of the 20-minute episodes.
Definitely. Well, and I mean, there were many Tales to Give You Goosebumps stories that could have made good episodes. It's funny that they chose the ones that they did because a lot of them made for some of the worst episodes.
They could have done like Trios of Horror style, like Simpsons. They could have had like the 120-minute or 25 minutes or whatever it is, and they could have taken like 3 of the short stories from a Tales to Give You Goosebumps and put that into like one episode. So you get like the 3, kind of like they did with Trios of Horror.
Yeah, that could have been really interesting, actually. Yeah, that's a really good idea. They should have done that. But
I think that's
also,
Yeah.
if you want a really good Scarecrow like episode that does exist, go check out Haunting Hour. Haunting Hour's Scarecrow episode, I think, is one of the best episodes of the show. It is a really creepy episode. And I think it even had like two endings. So very interesting. I won't say too much, but go check that episode out if you're looking for a good Scarecrow episode. But yeah, I think that's a really good pick from Tales Give You Goosebumps. I think that's a good pick.
awesome.
Well,
Yeah.
moving on to my number seven. I mean, just I don't know if I've said this before, but it's so weird how so many of the later series in the or the later books in the OG 62 are like really good. Like obviously there's some stinkers in there, but like there are some really good books in the like Twilight years of that series. And one of them is The Haunted School.
Yeah.
Now we did get Perfect School, but Haunted School is not the same because Haunted School deals with like an alternate dimension. These kids get stuck in this like alternate dimension where there's no color and they're just trapped. Like it feels like a nightmare in this book because you're just like, there's nowhere to go. There's no escape. The one way that you could escape is like inaccessible and it's an elevator and they're trying to get it open. And there's so many like just trying to figure out what to do. How do we escape? It's a great psychological. A lot of the later OG 62 got psychological, like it got in your head,
Yeah.
which is really weird. But this one is just like it just feels like a nightmare. Just like reading it, and you're just like, how the hell are they going to get out? There's not really any like ghosts or monsters or anything. There's not really like a threat per se. It's more just like the fear of being stuck somewhere forever with no escape. And even like there's a part in the book where like somebody does come back and they're like, don't close that elevator. And it closes and they're like, oh no. So I think that could have been it. I mean, like I said, it's not too many like, and I think it could have been done in the 90s. Like you could just make everything black and white, like as simple as that. But I think it could have
Right.
been done. I think it could have been a very like claustrophobic sort of episode. And just sort of the existential dread of it all, just being stuck in a place you
Yeah.
can never escape from forever. I think it could have been a really good episode. It's a really good book. I recommend it. And yeah, that is my number 7 pick.
Sure. No, that's a good choice. I think the Haunted School is one of the most underrated Goosebumps stories, in my opinion. I think that obviously they did the Perfect School, which is
A lot of
also
people
great.
say it's like one of the scariest ones they've read.
I wouldn't say it's
So-
one of the scariest in my personal opinion, but it's definitely one of the most like eerie, like you know, in a sense where it's just kind of like a little bit like, ugh, you know what I mean? It's more about just like the dread of it all. Like just you can never go home. You're stuck in this colorless void, and the people who are the kids who are trapped there are like when the kids first arrive. And they're just like, can we just like touch your your color? Like we haven't seen color in years, like that sort of thing. It's just kind of a little.
It was like a
eerie
Twilight
and creepy.
episode.
Exactly. It really is like a Twilight Zone episode, in a lot of ways. It'd be really funny
Yeah.
too because Twilight Zone the original was all in black and white. Imagine if they did like in one of the new reboots, like they did something like that where somebody gets transported to like that 50s style Twilight Zone. I think that could have been really funny.
I think it'd be cool. I'd watch it.
But that's my number 7 pick. What about you, Bjorn?
My number 7. Well, it takes the game of tag to a whole new level. All right. Do you know what it is when I say that?
Is that how I learned to fly? No, I'm just kidding. It's Beast from the East.
Beast from the East. It sounds like an episode that would have been on the DVD disc menu. You know what I mean? Beast from the East, Goosebumps. I don't know. Honestly, who didn't want to see Spork? I mean, come on. You didn't want to see Spork or Flank or any of those guys? I mean, I think there's something about this book that would have made
I got
for
marked. I'm good.
awesome 20-minute episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have made for a really good, fast-paced 20-minute episode. Like, do you know what I mean? Because obviously it's about a game of tag, you know? And I just feel like this could have been a real quick moving episode. And I think it just would have worked really well. back in the 90s show. I don't know why they personally didn't do this episode. I feel like it's one they would have at least looked at and been like, hey, could we do this? I mean, how do we make these like fairy creature things look, And yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's the greatest Goosebumps story, but I think it's kind of fun. It's like a fun Goosebumps story. And I think it would have worked well for the 90s. I don't know how it would do now, but I think for the time period, it would have worked really well. And yeah, I believe as like a shorter episode, it would have been great. But I mean, trying to turn this into a two-parter would have been a huge mistake. You know what I mean? If they were like, hey, let's do Beast from the East, we'll make it a two-parter, I'd be like, no.
No, it would get boring really fast if you stretch it out that long. It's one of those stories that is very fast-paced in its nature. It could have almost, I'm thinking almost like sort of like The Most Dangerous Game. Like it's sort of just like on the hunt sort of thing.
Loser gets eaten.
Yeah,
literally.
Or like maybe there's like, because the whole twist at the end of is that they just wanted to play tag. They weren't like, dangerous or anything. But like you could give the illusion that like people are disappearing. So like one person just like disappears and doesn't show up until the end. But like that sort of thing. But yeah, just sort of like that being on the hunt is a really interesting concept for a horror story, especially by like just creatures in this area where it's like everything is a maze. Yeah, I totally agree. I think so too.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the concept of it. It's the idea of it. I think it would look really cool done as an episode. You know what I mean? I mean, it may not read as like the most amazing Goosebumps story, but I do remember it being just very fast paced. And I remember like reading it and thinking, oh, it's finished. Like I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay. That one's over. You know what I mean? And I remember that feeling that first time I read it. And I'm like, damn, that would be a really fun, like, short episode. Like, if they did that as just like the 20-minute short Goosebumps story. So, yeah, I'm putting Beast from the East on there for the sole fact I think it would have just been a fun episode.
That's like the great thing about Goosebumps is that you can just, like, start it and then, starting this book. Oh, shit, it's already done.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was one of those really, like, quick ones. And, one of my friends, like, one of my best mates, he said one of his favorite books growing up. So yeah, I think it'd be an interesting one.
R.L. Stein's such a freaking cocky prick. He like, I know how to make you just read these books constantly is because he puts a twist at the end of every chapter. So when you're a kid, like you're sitting down and like, I'll read one chapter before bed, but then it's like, oh, but then something was creeping up behind. What is it? And then you're like, well, I guess I got to read the next chapter now.
That one, it's like, oh, he heard rustling in the trees. And you're just like,
wait, what is it? Yeah. And then you're just like, oh, I'm at the end of the book. Well,
yeah. I remember that was one of the questions we did on that trivia game. And it was like the name of the beast and it was Spork. And I was like, rhymes with a utensil.
Yeah. And it's eating like a utensil.
And that's how I remembered. I was like, it's Spork.
Man. What a weird name.
I mean, look, I've put these on my list, but I wouldn't necessarily even know if these are in the order of how I'd want them. Like, do I really want like this one over Screams of the Haunted Mouse? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather this one. I just kind of just put them in the list. So my top two is like my top two.
Take his list with a grain of salt, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the list of the 10 episodes I would have liked to
dismiss the list. The list is bullshit.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. Nick, what do you got for number 7?
Oh, I've got continuing my give yourselves. We got Your Plant Food. I really enjoyed the whole stay out of the basement concept. Something about plant horror is, for whatever reason, like to me at least, not a very it's not a very saturated market. It's very niche almost. So, and the cover, honestly, it was like terrifyingly beautiful. Like it's great art, but it's just like the look of the cover was insane. And you're like, oh, what kind of book is this?
Craig White.
Yes, Craig White. Shout out. But man, like I actually really enjoyed the story though. So I always thought, another plant episode would have been really good. With how well they did stay out of the basement. Mm-hmm. I think they could have nailed this one too.
Yeah.
I agree.
Definitely. All right,
Cool.
moving on to my number 6. We did already talk about this one, but I actually have a few things to add about it and why I would like it as an episode. Beware the Snowman. Um, I think this is an underrated book. In fact, I almost consider this is like the winter version of Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. Sort of
Yeah.
isolated area
Yeah.
with all these weird,
Agree.
like seemingly innocent, like instead of scarecrows, it's snowmen, and even more so, snowmen are more, friendly looking. Like a scarecrow can look creepy. A snowman is like, you would
This
have
is
to
Jack
really
Frost.
try to make a snowman look creepy.
Evil Jack
Um,
Frost.
Jack Frost, yeah, the Michael
Yeah,
Keaton
I was gonna
one,
say
yeah.
Jack Frost.
Yeah. I was like, I was about to say, are we talking about the actual
back
horror
in the day,
movie
I
or the
wonder how
Michael
many
Keaton
people
one?
actually took. I was gonna say, I wonder how many people back in the day actually took the Jack Frost horror movie VHS and like put it in the kids section with Jack Frost instead. So they're going home and putting that in the VCR.
No, I'll do you one better. Somebody took the DVD case for the Michael Keaton one and put in the one for the slasher, put that disc in there.
Oh,
And
the
like
disc.
maybe like
Disc.
scribbled out the
Thanks.
label or
With them.
something like that. You know what I mean? Like just swap
Like
it.
now, kids.
Me
time for
personally,
movie
I think
day.
you could have done it vice versa. Take the slasher movie DVD case and put in the Michael Keaton one. That'll scare the daylights out of them. That movie. Who the fuck looked at that movie and was like, "Yeah, that looks good. That looks whimsical and charming." I don't know. To me, it just looks.
I watched it.
It looks so freaky to me. And like
had
there's
the
scenes where he's like
VHS.
looking in his son's window, like this like creepy ass snowman just spying through the window. I don't know. That's me personally. It's a fine movie, but
I mean, I watched it. Yeah, it's fine. It's a fine movie, but I'm just No, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know how they thought this is definitely for kids. Look at this. Look at this guy. Look at this
the one in
snowman.
the slasher movie, honestly, despite here's the funny thing, and I don't mean to get too off topic, but here's the funny thing about the slasher movie, Jack Frost. You see that cover, right? That freaky like snowman on the cover. The movie, it looks nothing like that. It looks 0% like that. It actually honestly, it looks more friendly than the one in the Michael Keaton one because it looks more cartoony. But I don't know. That was always funny to me. But anyway, back to the book, Beware the Snowman.
Yes.
So like I said, I consider this like the winter version of Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, and I really like that book and that episode. But something about a winter environment, and there was never a winter episode of the show, let alone a Christmas episode. And honestly, God, I hate that Happy Holidays from Deadhouse did not get made, because if it was made, I don't care if it was good or bad, I would put that on my list, because it sucks that there was never a holiday or Christmas or even a winter episode of this TV show.
Just a sequel to Welcome to Deadhouse. Like, come on, man.
Exactly. But even more so because I know Abominable Snowman was considered originally to be adapted. It was among one of the books that was considered to be adapted for the TV show, legitimately. But I think Beware the Snowman would have worked more. I just like the isolation. I like that it's again, it's a little more psychological, but it deals a lot in sorcery too. It's more interesting of an execution. And it was just a really interesting story. I think it's a very underrated book. But I think this would really do well, especially not to go back to the 2023 series again, but the scenes where they're in like that mountain lodge, and they're like running through the snow. I imagine like the episode like that, like just like running through all that snow in a blizzard, and like that's terrifying. To me personally, like being chased by something.
Well,
in
that's why
a
when
blizzard.
we talked about that episode, we couldn't believe that that was called "You Can't Scare Me." It's like that should have just been titled "Beware the Snowman," and actually put in the snow monster, like the snowman. So it's like a missed opportunity, and
You could have gotten more "I'm your father" sort of stuff. There's a lot more. There's a lot of that. I'm your real father in this book. So that sort of
Jack Frost stuff in there.
Like,
I'm your dad.
Your dad.
It's just-
He has the voice of Michael. They get Michael Keaton for that episode.
Yeah. You want to reprise the role of a snowman, Mr.
Yeah.
Keaton?
Anyway,
Okay.
Beware the Snowman. That's my number 6. I think it would. I agree. I think it would really work for an episode of the show.
Yeah, I had to have it on my list too. I actually like the book. I like it.
It's
I'm
a
a
good
sucker
book. I think like I said, I think it's pretty underrated. A lot of the later series ones, or later in the series, OG62 are pretty underrated books.
yeah.
I agree. Bjorn, what
My
do you
number
got?
6 has already been mentioned, so I got nothing to really say because you kind of covered everything I was going to talk about. But Egg Monsters from Mars, I personally was a fan of it as a kid. The egg monster actually did become one of the like mascot characters later in Goosebumps. Not in the early days of like when they were doing all the merch and all that stuff, but like later on they started using the egg monster on a lot of the stuff. So I remember like reading the book and I was a fan. You know, like you said, it's not the greatest Goosebumps story, but I think it's fun, and it would have been really interesting to see how they would have done that. You know, would they have used a puppet? Would they have used like actual oozing, I don't know, like stuff? I just, it would have been an interesting one to see how they would have done it. Chicken, Egg Monsters from Mars. I mean, all of these books would be great to just see, like, what would they have done? Practical or CGI awful looking, you know, like, or so bad that it's creepy, like in My Best Friend's Invisible. So yeah, no, Egg Monsters from Mars. I had it number 6. So yeah,
Hmm.
would have been a cool one to see adapted for sure. So hopefully we do actually get to see that in the new season of Goosebumps.
Well, there's
This will be the
speculation
first
about it.
right?
Yeah, there's speculation about it. We actually were talking about it in a little bit ago. At the time of recording this episode, there was an image that surfaced, and we did some talk about this, but it might be adapted for the new series, Egg Monsters from Mars. So we'll have to see. Hopefully,
I
they
don't
do
know.
it justice.
The new poster or image reveal didn't have the egg in there anymore.
Well, it's because
Maybe they're just
it got leaked, and maybe they were like, "Oh, damn it!"
That was supposed to be the surprise.
I know. But Nick, what do you got for number
maybe
6?
maybe the surprise is that it's not egg monsters, it's chicken. Maybe it's the egg for chicken.
That would be
What
good.
it
I would
is?
like that.
Oh,
That would be a really good bait and switch if it was.
mind blown if they do that. Mind blown.
Oh my god,
Faith
that'd be
in
It's just
amazing.
the Goosebumps Plus series.
Literally, come alive. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my
no, that'd be great. Nick, what do you got for number 6?
If it starts like pecking out and you just see the human head first, and then the rest of the chicken body comes out, you're like,
you see,
Oh,
you see feathers just flying out. Like,
"This is fantastic."
It'd be weird.
It'd be Dr. Brewer trying to make the plant monsters, but he accidentally made chicken
monsters.
plant monsters.
oh my god.
That'd be weird.
Yeah.
Chicken monsters. Oh, my number 6. Staying with that give yourself trend, but I really like the stories that they did. All Day Nightmare.
Yes. That one I will absolutely get behind you
interesting-
on, because I think All Day Nightmare is a great give yourself book, and I think the premise
Yes.
for it is really well done. So I agree on that
Yes.
one wholeheartedly.
All the black
I always
spines.
thought that'd be like, honestly, if they could have done it. Again, this would have to be like early 90s episode, not later, where they kind of got goofy. It would have to be that darker tone. It would have been on the scarier side based on what the context of the story was. So I think that would have been a really awesome book. Or not book, but a really awesome episode of the book.
Yeah, I think that would have been
Just
a good
depends,
book
I guess,
too.
which. Yeah, well, maybe Stein will hear this and take it one day, 20 years down the road.
Please.
I heard that happened with Slime Doesn't Pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? That title is new.
It's a new title, bro.
It's a new title.
No,
Never
it-
I never said that.
It's
I
a
never
great-
heard that title before.
Nope. Brand new. Never came up.
No, but All Day Nightmare, highly. I almost went higher on my list, but there's a few others I think just edged it out though. So when we get there, I will explain why. But I really liked All Day Nightmare.
I have to commend you for
Great.
going with Give Yourself Goosebumps. It's I haven't read too many of those books to really consider them, but it's interesting. But I definitely agree about All Day Nightmare. I think that one is a
It's a
really
great
good
one.
pick. Yeah.
It's my favorite black spine, my favorite Mark Nagato, well, my favorite shiny, let's call it shiny, was Escape from
Shiny.
Camp Run Theater. So, you know, But yeah, All Day Nightmare, awesome book. You know, the story, the cover, everything. I think it's just it's a perfect way to have ended to give yourself Goosebumps books. So
Well, it's time to move on to our top five.
whoa, these
And
are the big boys now.
yep, these are the ones we really want to see. And I'm actually, so far, I've had an OG62 on here. But for my number five, I actually have a Series 2000, and it's going to be The Haunted Car.
Yeah.
I really like The Haunted Car. It's sort of like a Christine-esque story. You could definitely tell during Series 2000 that Stein was taking from Stephen King. So you had Christine, you had Pet Sematary, and Cry the Cat, so that sort of thing. But I like The Haunted Car. It's just a really interesting. It's an interesting concept for a ghost story of like this kid who is being haunted by this spirit who's haunting the car, but just the dread of like being trapped in the car. The scene where he's trapped in the car and it's just like going so fast and he's just like, stop the car, stop the car. It's just like, but you wanted to, I thought you liked to drive.
You like it.
Even the sort of like beckoning, like, I don't know what I think of the haunting, going back to the haunting hour, the episode Catching Cold, like sort of like just the ethereal, like, I really need to like have that. So like imagine if the character just is like drawn to the car and he just wants to drive it, but it's trying to kill him. It's trying to get him in so he can like crash. Like that sort of thing. It's just a really interesting concept for a story. And I would have liked to see it in the TV show personally.
An iconic one now too. It's become iconic.
Well, it's another one that's gotten, re-releases. It got seen in the Goosebumps movie.
Slappy's driving it.
Literally driving the haunted car. Well, because he can't reach the pedals. He even says so. He's like, I'd stop, but I can't reach the brakes.
So I need a haunted car to drive for me. Literally. Does he just turn the wheel? I don't even think I saw him turning the wheel in it. He just goes where he wants it to go.
He was getting is that driving Miss Daisy moment, so he's Miss Daisy.
I'm driving myself crazy.
Oh man.
But Haunted Car, that's my number five. I think it's a great Series 2000 book, and I think it really would have been a good episode personally. So my number five. Bjorn?
Yeah. My number five, keeping in the vein of that Series 2000, I have Return to Horrorland. Now, why I chose this book? Can you guess why?
Well, you like Horrorland per se?
I love One Day at Horrorland. I think it's great. I know we got the video game Escape from Horrorland, which was like a sequel, but then we ended up getting a book sequel anyway. So it's like this technically would be what, number 3? This wouldn't even be the. You could almost say this is like 3 because didn't they? I swear they mentioned that Escape from Horrorland was canon, right? The story was like a canon to the Goosebumps, like direct sequel to One Day at Horrorland is what they said.
Yeah.
So if we put it in there, it almost acts as a sequel, right? And then this could be almost like the third book.
Well, and as we stated, it's also like establishing almost like a Goosebumps canonical universe because there's mention of Evan and the Monster Blood, and then I think Amazo is also in the story too. So it was like the only book before, the Horrorland series to be like, oh no, these stories are connected. Like this. Yeah. They're connected.
They're all connected.
If you did the episode adaptation, you would have like, well, if you did an episode adaptation, that would have to imply that they didn't die at the end of the first episode. So
it's open for interpretation. So
maybe they're ghosts.
Where like it starts off with like the way it ended. So the way One Day at Horrorland ended could be like the car going over the edge, and then like it goes off the edge, but then they like, I don't know, jump out the car doors and they go in the water. We survived. But then for whatever reason,
in the water,
they go back to
and they get out.
I don't know.
It's like we left something there, and they had to go back. I don't know, but I just think Horrorland is as iconic as it is. The book is great. I just feel like we should have got a second. I mean, obviously the new series we didn't get Horrorland, which is what we thought we were going to get. But it would just be nice to have, another Horrorland episode. Kind of like with the Haunted Mask thing again. I just would have liked to have revisited that world, you know?
Mhm.
And I mean, whether they would have done it better than the first episode, because obviously it was good, but it wasn't amazing. But whether or not they could have, capitalized on that and made it, better, I don't know. But I just think, it would have been nice to, have a sequel to One Day at Horrorland, Return to Horrorland. I mean, you know, we all love the horrors. They're very iconic in the Goosebumps universe. I mean, we got an entire series, literally Goosebumps Horrorland, where at the end we enter Horrorland, you know.
Mhm.
So I just think it would have been, really nice to,
Well,
go
and
back
Return to
there.
Horrorland had the whole angle of like they're going back because they want to expose it, so they're like getting
Oh
this
yeah,
like this news crew like trying to expose Horrorland. So you could have continued with the whole
oh,
TV
like the
angle.
fingers scene, the
Yeah,
chicken. But he's like, no, we don't have chicken fingers, just fingers.
yeah, so,
And I'm like, well, that's one way to expose them. Like,
yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
no, I think, that's my number five pick. So, I mean, hey, we had to go big with the top five, and I want a Horrorland sequel.
It's understandable. Nick, what do you
Yeah.
got?
It was unforgettable. And to keep in that same vein, actually, and to keep on the same trip I had with Craig White, apparently in his artwork, going with the Give Yourself line, because we already did Your Plant Food, All Day Nightmare. Why not just go with another one? Return to Terror Tower, because
Oh,
I want a sequel to Night in Terror Tower. And since it's a straight sequel where you have Eddie and Sue, the Executioner, I would have really loved to have seen uh, Eddie and Sue back, the actors, of course, Catherine and Corey. And I think it would have been a really good episode because they, as we learned in our interview with Catherine Short, they did all that at Loma Castle, which is surprising. But with a budget they could have potentially had later, of course, we're looking at these as 90s episodes, but even with the budget they had, that was really a well visually shot episode. So
Mhm.
I would have liked to have seen another continuation of that, especially with given how it ended.
me
Definitely.
too. It's one of Night Terror Tower. It's like one of my favorite books, favorite episodes. It's just so iconic, and it would have been nice to, revisit that world too. I think it would have been really awesome. Go back to the castle, bring back the same cast. It would have felt like the Haunted Mask too, where we literally got to revisit the cast again. We could have had that
Mhm.
same
Exactly.
treatment with Night and Terror Tower. We could have gone back there, but who knows? Never say never. We could always do these sequels even with the same cast. It could just be like 20 years later. More like 30.
G2O, Goosebumps 20 years later. It's like
Yeah,
H2O.
like,
Right. Halloween H2O.
Yeah.
we already
What's it
spoke
got to do with
Catherine
Wada?
about Haunted Mask 3, right? Like, hey, Haunted Mask 3.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
where
true.
she
Both
plays
Catherines are now aware of Haunted Mask 3 that we want to do. So, like,
Hey.
and they seem to be down
Maybe
for
one
it.
day.
she's interested, Scholastic, or whoever, we have to get in touch with Disney Plus. You want to do another Haunted Mask episode? Well, she said she's keen, so there you go. Make the fans happy. Give them what they want.
Maybe one day. Moving on
Maybe
to my
one
number
day.
4. And again, I'm a broken record at this point, but the later OG62 were phenomenal. But probably, I have one over this, but probably my absolute favorite. You know what? It's kind of tied. But my number 4 is going to be I Live in Your Basement.
I knew you were going to say that. It popped in my head. Just before
Yeah,
you looked it
yeah.
up, I was like, I live in your basement. I live in your basement. Boom.
Yep. It's I Live in Your Basement. I love
Great
this book.
Goosebump minds think alike.
This is an extremely underrated book.
It
I
is.
think this book is like I think this is a masterclass in sort of the psychological Goosebumps story that I was talking about, because this whole thing is just like, what is real? Like, it's not a straight up monster story in the same way, and even like the monster itself is sort of like a side thing. It's more just about the main character trying to find out like what is going on, what is real. There are revelations in the book that like flip the entire story on its head. And it's not like there's no like Yeah, well, I was gonna say there's no dreams, but that's a lie. There's definitely dreams, but it's like it's not retconned. It's not like, oh, that was just like a one and done change to the story just to be like funny. It's like, no, I guess I might as well spoil it. There's a scene in the book where up until this point, uh, Marco had this friend, and she was the one that knocked his ass out and got him in this scenario to begin with. Um, Way into the book, he wakes up in a hospital, and then he finds out that she is actually his sister. And it's like it completely changes the dynamic, and you as the reader are like, what? Huh? Like you're just as confused as he is. Um, but it's also really creepy, like just the way that the story goes along. He tries to show people that like there's a kid being like, I live in your basement. And he's like writing an essay and there's like writing on there that says, I live in your basement. And he's like, look at that. And it's like, Marco, the computer's not even on. Like, like, what are you talking about? So it's a great psychological story. Now, as I said, you're not paying attention to what would have been okay to put on TV for kids back then, because I don't think that they could have done someone turning inside out in a 90s children's television
Hey,
series.
it looks like the
I don't
blob
know.
from the Ed episode.
I mean,
could
I
get
think
away with a lot more back in the 90s than definitely what you could today.
at least the way that they
Um,
were that Stein explained it in the book, where he opened his mouth and just like his lungs and his heart and his like stomach just like flopped out, probably would have been a little too gory for TV at the time. Um,
Yeah.
or like I think like The Simpsons with like the gas that turns you inside out, like how that goes about. So, but I love this book. I think it is a serious underrated classic in the Goosebumps series, and I would have loved to see an episode adaptation. So that is my number four.
It might happen.
I hope so. I really hope so. You know,
Well, Nick, you had the same kind of idea as me because my number four was also Return to Terror Town. Because I kind of already said what I wanted to say when you were talking about it. I love it. I would love to revisit it. I would like to go back to the castle and bring back the original OG cast. It's just, yeah. I love Night in Terror Tower, and I would like to see sequels to any of the books that I'm a fan of. So, yeah, that's my quick, short answer. You kind of already covered that one, guy. You did, guy.
well, we kind of figured, at least along some of this list that we made, that some were going to be the same with each other. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be a surprise because these are also just Goosebumps fan favorites. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's not surprising that we were going to have some crossover here, because there's a lot of them. Like even my number four, the horror at Camp Jelly Jam, has already been talked about.
Yay! Yay!
So, I mean, for me, yes, I do like the story. I'm not, again, kind of like Isaiah, I do like some of the other camp stories a little better, but I think just because of the overall story to that, before the whole short, brief King Jelly Jam moment at the end there, I mean, the rest of it was, I thought, really well done. It was kind of a toss up. I was kind of in between this one or First at Camp Cold Lake, but in the end, this one won. And I think it's just because of Buddy on the cover. Tim got me, man. I love the Curse of Camp Cold Lake cover. Don't get me wrong, it's creepy as crap.
Yeah.
But all I think about when I see Buddy now is that picture of Tim when he's like doing the pose for it so he can draw it.
There's
And I'm
something
just like,
iconic about it now.
I want Tim to play that in the episode, even though, like, Tim, I know you said you're not an actor, brother, when we talked, but let me tell you, like, I still would want you in that role because it's just perfect. It looks perfect because he casts it on himself.
He doesn't have
That
to
would
act. He can be in it, and someone can double voiceover for him or something. Like, dude, just do this the whole
pull
time. and
Amos
someone-
Crawley over a Larry Boyd scenario.
Right? Yeah,
Oh, that'd be funny.
Man.
Well,
Cool.
we got
Buddy doesn't like
another-
mints.
Now we're in
Doesn't
the
have to do with anything.
real hardcore stuff.
Yeah. So my number three, I had to have at least one slappy book. Unlike you guys, I tried to go for not sequels, because I wanted to like, keep in with books that didn't have an existing episode. But I had to do at least one. It's a Slappy book. Now I know everybody always talks about Night of the Living Dummy, the first one. And they talk about like how it should have been an episode. Why did they go to the second one? Some people even argue that it's a lost episode. It's not. Let me be clear. There is no Night of the Living Dummy episode. And instead of being predictable, and honestly, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not really like too big on there should have been a Night of the Living Dummy 1 episode, because I feel like Night of the Living Dummy 2 did what it was supposed to. It was sort of like the basic Slappy thing. If we wanted to go really weird, I would have done Slappy's Nightmare.
Yeah, but that's different. That's unique, that book, because It's not the same.
That is why it's on my list, because it is a Slappy story, but it did something different. Slappy is the main character in this book. It's from his perspective. And it's interesting because not only do you get to get into the mind of a villain, but also a horror villain. But you just get to see him as not the protagonist, but the person you're following, because the whole point of the story is that Jimmy O. James is like, I have a spell that's going to put you to sleep forever, essentially going to kill him. So you better do like some good deeds. Like you need to do like some good in order to avoid that. So you're following Slappy trying to like do good things, but everything's backfiring for him. I think that could have been really interesting. It would have been another excuse to get Cal Dodd to do Slappy again.
Yes.
But just do something different.
Have the actor who played Jimmy O. James come back.
Exactly.
Yeah, like it would have felt like a direct sequel to Bride.
Mm-hmm.
But
and
different.
Just, again, something different, because Night of the Living Dummy 2, 3, and Bride had like little things about them that like differentiated them, but they were all essentially the same thing. Slappy, comes into a house, causes trouble, and then gets killed at the end. This one would have at least been a different concept. It would have stood out a little more. And it's always just nice to see a villain forced to do good, especially a villain like Slappy, who's such an egomaniac as to how evil he is, to just have to do good stuff just to avoid, going to sleep forever. So
knowing he's going to be put to sleep forever. Like literally, instead of him going into your room and trashing it, he's literally cleaning your bedroom.
Yeah. He's doing it like it's not like he's under mind control or anything. It's not like he's enjoying it. He's like doing it all begrudgingly. Like he's just like, oh, so there's times where he's just like letting it slip. It's just like, God, I wish I could just fucking slap the shit out of you right now.
Yeah.
God, if I could, I would. So that would have been interesting for me. I really like this book. I think it would have been a great episode. Just an excuse to get more of that TV show Slappy in there. So that's my number 3.
Oh, yeah. Nothing wrong with that. That's why I said before, like, they did those episodes with those characters so well, even when it wasn't a two-parter. Like, Slappy episodes are still iconic. The Haunted Mask episode's iconic. So I would have liked to have seen more Haunted Mask, and I would have liked to see more Slappy.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's fun. It's like watching more Slappy just felt like another Chucky movie coming out. So that's why you were like, yes, I want to see it. Even if it's not great, I still want to see it. It's a new Chucky movie. But the new Chucky TV series has been pretty damn good. So I must admit, it's been not bad. I agree that's a good pick, because it's, and you know what? 2 and 3 and Bride all felt like different stories. Like, we weren't really following the same story, but having Slappy's Nightmare would have felt like, okay, we actually have a sequel now to Bride. Like, this is a continuing story, kind of like the Haunted Mask 2. At least those two were connected, so you would have had, like, the two, like, you could literally just watch Bride and Slappy's Nightmare. You didn't even have to watch 2 and 3, and you would have felt like, I just want to that connect, So, I agree with that. My number 3 is Ghost Camp. I love this book so much, man. I think this is one of the most creepiest Goosebumps books ever. Like, it is freaky. Like, I just love the scenes where they wake up and they see the little pools of water, like liquid stuff on the ends of the beds. And you're like, what the hell is that? Because obviously, they're ghosts. And I love how they kind of leave that behind, you know. Each
Well, there
one of
goes
them.
my worst case scenario.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Like I don't know. Has anyone? No one's put this on their list yet, but yeah, I love this. I love how it just says even on the back, really creepy, really scary. I'm like, damn, fucking right, this book was.
I
Like,
think Stein himself has said that that's like one of the creepiest books he's ever written.
Yeah, even just like you're reading it, and you're kind of like, I'm like, when is this getting a re-release? Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, how has this book not gotten a re-release yet? It's really weird. Like, I feel like this is one of the books that would have got it by now. I mean, eventually, I feel like we're going to get all original 62. Like, eventually. It just seems to be a very slow process. But I
wonder if they do a re-release though, if they're going to do changes to it, like we found out later, where they started changing some of. Mostly, I think it was just the wording in the books, but they didn't even tell Stein about it. It was so what else are you changing then? I wonder. That's why I prefer just having the original.
And I mean, it's nothing better than reading the original book with that cover out on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just something about it. Like, I'm one of those that reads and I'll look back at the cover for a bit and then I'll go back to it and then read. Like, I don't know. It's like that with me and Goosebumps. But I just love the whole thing, like with the campfire and the wind picks up and, you know, with all the kids. And I think this is honestly not just the best ghost story in Goosebumps, but I think it's one of the best ghost stories I've ever read. Like, period. Not just in Goosebumps, just in general. Like, ghost stories and films, like, the amount that I've seen, I think this is just one of the best, like, of all time, for me, personally. So, yeah, I've got Ghost Camp at number 3. It's in my top 10 favorite Goosebump books. I think it might even be in my top 5 from memory. So, yeah, no, I think this deserved an adaptation. I don't know why they didn't do it. I feel like this wouldn't have been too difficult either. You know how they kind of just like bypass certain ones because they think, oh, this might have been a little too hard. I don't see how this one would have been too difficult. I feel like they could have actually adapted this one back in the day. But I hope one day we might get like, you know, with the Goosebumps TV series now, I hope like maybe we'll get like season 3 where it's all ghost or just all camp themed. So you have like Camp Nightmare, Camp Jelly Jam, Cold Lake, Ghost Camp all in one season. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm hoping one day we will get to see Ghost Camp adapted. I mean, we even got the sequel book, Return to Ghost Camp, in the series 2000. So R.L. Stein did think, hey, I want to do a sequel to this book. So yeah, it's kind of odd that we haven't gotten any kind of adaptation or a re-release. So hopefully,
what if there was a 4-camp system? Like they were all 4 of those camps were just right next to each other. Just
yeah, like you know, or like they go to camp. Yeah, I don't know. Something like that would be really interesting. Or they go to a summer camp and it's literally you've got Buddy there, you've got Larry and Uncle Al, you've got, you know, like just every like just imagine in one place. They have like the sports camps, they earn the king coins, but then kids also start disappearing like they do in
Saber, King Jelly Jam, just having like ghost campers about that sort of thing.
It would be such a cool like to intertwine that. You know, like the wind picks up during the campfire and, the kids. And I just think it would be really cool to do that. So hopefully one day. But yeah, Ghost Camp number 3 is such a good story.
I agree. Nick, what do you got?
Oh, well, keeping with the Halloween theme are my last 3. So Trick or Trap.
Oh. Ooh.
So
which one? The Give Yourself or the new one?
Not the Trick or Trapped. Trick or Trap.
Ah.
There are 2.
Yep.
But this one is not Trick or Trapped. This is not the Give Yourself. This is Trick or Trap.
So this is the most wanted special edition. This is a modern book.
This is a modern one. I know. Shocking.
Interesting. We're going. Hey, we needed some of that to make this list a little different, right?
That's why when we were talking about this idea for this episode, and I was like, I don't know, you'd be surprised. I'm not going with just all original 62 or series 2000. I know that's my bread and butter. That's my jam. But I
did a Horrorland book.
Yeah, I mean, well, I didn't do a Horrorland book. I mean, well, I guess I will be doing one though. You did one, but I haven't done that yet.
I wonder what it is.
But why did you pick Trick or Trap?
But I don't know. Have you guys read that one? Should I
I
give a little
haven't.
synopsis to you? No?
I've read
Okay.
everything once, at least. Oh, at least
Okay,
once.
cool. So, I mean, like, I always read the ones that at least sounded like on the blurb like it would be a good story, or especially if it was a Halloween centric one, I definitely wanted to read it. So, uh, Trick or Trap, I actually really enjoyed being a Halloween story. Yes,
That's
exactly.
fun.
So you have it there. Definitely got to read that one when you get time. I enjoyed it. Again, it goes along with that Halloween theme, but what's really interesting about this one was the without giving too much away. That's why I ask if you guys have read it or not. So that way, if you intend to, I'm not going to spoil anything. But basically, like the whole concept of taking, again, kids with Halloween and like, how can I put this without actually ruining everything? So again, it follows along with a couple of kids, and it actually goes into Halloween night in a haunted house, but it is a twist, obviously, that Stein likes to put in a lot of stuff with haunted houses. But how it ends uh, is what I really liked about it. Like, it's kind of like one of those scenarios, like you think you know how it ended, but if you picked up on little key details, you realize that ending was kind of seen coming, but it's just little things. So, without giving too much away, very Halloween-esque story, haunted house, kids, and a very, what I feel is a very good twist ending.
Cool.
So
No, I agree.
that's why it's
Sure.
on my list. So I won't say any more since Isaiah hasn't read it yet.
It's one of the better Brandon Dorman covers too.
Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
This cover is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the whole like torn bag of candy, just the undead's holding.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good designed cover, and that's what got me to look at it first, and then reading the blurb, and I'm like, okay, no, I can get behind this. Let's hope it's just well written. So,
Yeah.
and I think it was, and I think it would have been a really good '90s episode because I think that's one of the great things the '90s show did was when they did a Halloween episode, they went all out with it. Like it was something you want to watch like every Halloween season. So I definitely feel they could have done this episode back in the '90s very well.
I agree. Definitely. All right. On to my number 2. So we're talking about camp stories. I mentioned earlier that there was a lot of camp stories, especially in the original 90s run, and I didn't want to have too many of them because I already had Horror Camp Jelly Jam, and I was really, really torn between Curse of Camp Cold Lake and Ghost Camp. Honestly, I wanted to keep it to a straight top 10. I guess you can say I would like to have both of them in my list, Camp
Just
Cold Lake
say
and
the other
Ghost
one's
Camp.
an honorable mention.
Yeah, I would say for my number 2, it's going to be Curse of Camp Cold Lake, and Ghost Camp is my honorable mention. But I chose Camp Cold Lake over it because it is a very creepy story. It's like a stalker story almost. Like you're being stalked by a ghost at a camp, and she wants to essentially like drown you. Like she wants you to die so that she has a buddy. And she's like, I can't cross over until I have a buddy. So it's like, I want you to be my buddy. I want you to die. And they really go out of their way to like make it to see like that this camp is not the best place to be. And the lake itself, I mean, the name doesn't lie. They say that the lake is cold. And people are like, oh my gosh, is it freezing? But it's just the idea of being like just stalked by a ghost who is just like infatuated with you, and is trying to kill you so you can be their friend forever. It's a really creepy concept. People always say, I mean, there's a reason that this is one of the like cult and Goosebumps books. Again, super underrated, super good book. I definitely recommend it if you haven't read it. And I think it could have been a good TV show episode, especially the '90s series. I think it really could have been executed perfectly. So, Curse of Camp Cold Lake, that's my number 2.
I don't think it would have been too difficult to do either.
No, not
Number
at all.
2.
I think it could have easily been done with the budget and sort of stuff. I think it could have been done.
I think Ghost Camp and Camp Cold Lake would have been pretty easy. Jelly Jam's just hard because of Jelly Jam.
Yeah.
That made it hard. They would have looked at that and gone, "Ooh, no, can't do that." The other two that I'm sure they would have looked at and been like, could probably do this, like, but for whatever reason, they just bypassed and said, look, we got Welcome to Camp Nightmare. We got our camp episode. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, no, I agree. My number two is you're probably thinking, why is this not number one? But it's the Horror Camp Jelly Jam. It's my favorite Goosebump book. I don't know why I didn't put it at one. I only put the other thing at one just to shut the fuck up.
Remember, your list is with a grain of salt. It's not in any particular order. So
yeah, it's not in any particular order. Let's say Curse of Camp Cold Lake is also an honorable mention. I would have loved to have seen that. But of course, I wanted to see my main man. You guys have both already covered this. But yeah, it's more so not even King Jelly Jam that I wanted to see from this story. I wanted to see the different sporting events that take place. That would have been interesting to see. Yeah, and I wanted to see fucking Buddy.
Yeah.
He's more iconic to me than King Jelly Jam was, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he was a more iconic character. And it could have been an Uncle Al situation where, had they got the right person to really nail that role, he could have been the iconic character. Like, not Saber. Like, did anyone really care about Saber, or was Uncle Al more the cool, like, sort of antagonist? You know what I mean? Like,
I loved Uncle Al. The actor who played Uncle Al did a phenomenal job.
Saber's just like, he's there.
I truly wish we could have had him on the podcast. So
him and Kai and Larry, those three would have been so good on the podcast. But no,
it's such a good one.
This book, I would love to have seen all the scenes at night. When they do like the winner's walk with the lights and the fire, the sporting events, and I would have loved to have seen whoever would have portrayed this role. It could have become a really iconic role if the guy did a good job. Do you know what I mean? Horror Camp Jelly Jam. Other than that, you guys covered everything else with King Jelly Jam. I mean, I would have loved to have seen big, giant, gross snails just popping out the side of it if they'd done that right too. And they probably would have used real snails, maybe. I don't know. Would they have used real snails or fake ones? But
I imagine real.
Probably real.
I imagine real ones. But I think King Jelly Jam just would have looked terrible. So I'm kind of glad they didn't make it, because I wouldn't want them to have just ruined it, if that makes sense. But yeah, it would have been more to just see the portrayal of Buddy, and if had done right, they would have had to find a guy that has huge ass gums and big teeth. That would have worked so well. So yeah,
I feel prosthetics would have been fine, but you know what? I will say Tim's picture showed that he can really get that look.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Just imagine the cover of the DVD.
I still want Tim. I still want Tim on that. I think if we get Tim for a Halloween episode one time, we gotta tell him he's gotta dress up as Buddy. So
be Buddy. He should be Buddy.
I will make him a Jelly Jam shirt and everything. Like, he just needs to wear it.
Give him the whistle,
and
the hat, the shirt, and his little shorts. Here we go.
I mean, when we get Horrorland up and going, when we get him there, if it's a Halloween time, I'm gonna have that costume for him. I swear, I'm gonna get it together. And I'm gonna have him wear it.
Oh man,
if I have to get those,
that would be funny.
On him, like from the video we just saw. Put this on, Tim.
That would be really
You're
funny.
going as Buddy. You already done. You'll say you've done it before. You can do it again. But I think one of the other things.
Imagine going and getting a photo op with Tim, but he's in his Buddy costume, and he's doing the pose for you in the picture. How awesome would that be? Like, that would be my prized Tim possession. I know I've got autographs from him on tons of stuff, but that would be the freaking crap jewel of my Tim Goosebumps collection.
Oh, that would be so good. And you know what? That would just mean that Cal Dodd would have to dress up as Ginger Slappy from the TV show. We need that little like, come on. He would have to be Ginger Slappy. You're going to wear red lipstick, dude.
You know what? We just got to do his hair like Harrison at the end of that episode. We'll just give him a little Jerry curl there, and then we'll find those eyeballs that we can just have him set in, and we'll give him the suit. Boom. Just have him do the voice. Like, how creepy would that be?
Oh, that'd be amazing. Like, yeah, I agree. We should do all that. But another thing too is I love sports. Like, I love football and tennis and things like that. So that's another reason why this also translate like why I like it is because of the sporting aspect of it. So the sports, monsters, creepy camp counselors, it's got things I like. So yeah. Number 2, Horror Camp Jelly Jam. You guys can probably guess what number 1 is. Keeping with but mine is more of a just shut up. Shut up.
I know what your number 1 is.
Yeah. Well, what is your number 2?
Number 2, well, keeping with the Halloween theme, but we're going back to Series 2000 now.
Oh.
Headless Halloween.
I knew it.
That is one of my favorite Series 2000 books, if not my favorite one. And when you think you got that ending figured out, that it's a twist ending, it's like, nope. Everything that's happened is actually happened, and that is the most effed up thing about that book, and I love it, and I want to see it as an episode.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like M. Night Shyamalan doing a movie that doesn't really have a twist ending. Like, it's legit the whole time, but you're just waiting for it because that's how this person writes. And you're just like, come on, twist ending. Come on, twist. Wait, what?
Wait,
like,
what?
No! It's real! So I loved it. It was such a good book.
I'm surprised that book didn't get a re-release when Goosebumps Haunted Halloween came out. I'm surprised they didn't do a re-release then. It would have worked.
Yeah, they should have. I really think they should have
done it then.
I don't really know how they determine which books get the re-release and everything like that. I'm not really sure how that even works. Like, you think they would just go in order, but it's like they just pull one out of a hat and it's like, oh, it says blah blah blah. So
well, recently it seems like they're doing it to like tie in with the movies and shows that are coming out. So like the movie, when the first movie came out, a bunch of ones that were related to monsters in that movie came out and that sort of thing. So it's not really much of like a willy-nilly thing as it used to be when they were doing like Horrorland or something like that. But they should have done it. I agree. And honestly, I'm so glad that you brought up Headless Halloween because that just so happens to be my number 1. My number 1 is Headless Halloween. This is the one I wanted to have the episode of the most. If anything, just because I love Halloween stories. And Goosebumps, the 90s show, had, Haunted Mask 1 and 2. It had Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns. But this one, God, I wish we had this one because it almost reminds me of it's almost like an EC comic story. Just in the way that it's like presented. The main character's kind of a dick. Like, he's just pulling pranks and he wants to pull this ultimate prank, but it backfires on him in a very gruesome way. And the ending, it is a dark ending. This is a dark book. Like, this may be, not only do I think this is the best Series 2000 book, I think this is one of the most purely dark Goosebumps books, period. Like, I think this book is haunting. But that's what makes it so good. And that ending is phenomenal. I love the ending of this book. I think this book is perfect. I think it's a perfect book. One of the best Goosebumps books ever made. Definitely the best of the Series 2000. And I would have killed to see this as a TV episode. Definitely. If even just an excuse to have more Halloween episodes of the Goosebumps 90 series. But I think Headless Halloween is a great book.
Yeah, any reason for that, I would 100% be down for. Like I said, I love Halloween, and I love the episodes they did for the 90s show. So I agree, obviously, because it was my number 2.
Yeah.
But fantastic book. So good.
They better re-release it and use Tim's art as well, like they did with Body Squeezers.
Yeah, well, now they're doing that with the Tim's art and the re-releases, so they have no excuse now. They have to do it if they do it now.
Yeah. I agree that book should be, like I said, I'm shocked they didn't do it when Haunted Halloween came out. They did Headless Ghost, Bride of Living Dummy, Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns, and
Haunted Mask 2.
Haunted Mask 2, they did. Mm-hmm. And it makes just zero sense why that one wasn't also adapted. I feel like that should have been the 5th one. They should have done those 5. Or Headless Ghost wasn't really necessarily even in Haunted Halloween, right? So why? I mean, there was a lot of things in the background, right? A lot of shit going on in the background in that movie. But Headless Halloween, there was literally a headless horseman.
I don't know.
Like, it sort of fits in that vein a little bit. I mean, I'm just shocked they never did.
Yeah. But yep, Headless
Probably wasn't on
Halloween.
their radar.
That's my number one in my list. It's the one that I would have wanted to see as an episode the most out of my list. And honestly, all these books in my list, I mean, I think would have made great episodes. Whether or not they actually would have turned out good, budget and stuff like that, is a question in and of itself. But I mean, these books were left on the table, and I think they would have been great. So, but Headless Halloween's my number one. Bjorn, what about you? What's your number one?
Before I say my number one, I have an honorable mention at number one, which was Creature Teacher.
That's a good one.
There is even a sequel to that book now, Creature Teacher: The Final Exam. And Mrs. Ma, weird name. But she even made an appearance in the Goosebumps Horror Town. That, to me, is a very iconic Series 2000 book. The cover art, the story, it's one people think, when people think of Series 2000, it's one of those that pops in there, like, pretty much right away, because it was in the first, like, 5, in that early ones. So I've actually got that as an honorable mention, because that would have been just so cool to see adapted into it. But this one, it was hard between 1 and 2, because obviously my favorite book, I would have liked to have seen. But I even tried to make this myself at one point, because I was sick and tired of the Reddit posts and the Google posts and the YouTube videos of hey, this existed, but I watched it as a kid. I even saw videos where people claimed they saw it as a kid. I remember watching it, and I'm thinking, bullshit.
Oh,
What do you mean you saw it?
You wonder
What do you mean?
what it could be.
Yeah, I was like, what do you mean you actually watched it? Like, okay, why is there not a single clip or a photo or anything online? Like, it just made no sense at that point, that I was like, yeah, whatever. So I even attempted to make it myself. I would love to attempt it again now, like, because obviously I did it when I was 16, but, obviously with the experience and everything now, like, I would go back and I would, but yeah, Night Living Dummy, the original, right?
If you do,
I was just waiting for it.
don't forget. If you do, don't forget Slappy's gun. Okay.
Yes, yeah, exactly right. I mean, but
That was
like,
what was missing from your first attempt. So make sure you've got it in the second one.
yeah.
Yeah, and you need to put them in a box and roll them down the stairs.
I know, like, oh man, there's so many things about this book that, like, I would love to see. I mean, yes, Slappy's not the main villain and everything, and like I said, I even tried to attempt it. It's on my YouTube page, but I made it when I was like a kid, and I feel like if I went back and if I did it now, I could do a much better job at it. So there's still a part of me that wants to do it, with a good crew and everything, because I did it with other 16-year-olds. Like, I want to do it now with people my age, and and I would actually go through a ventriloquist doll maker like Caesar or oh god, who's our other friend Nick that makes us our
Josh.
yeah, or him, just any of them, and I would get him to make me puppets from scratch of both. You know what I mean? That look really good, and I would try to attempt to make it again, just so they can be an episode, just so it exists, even if it's not like a official release, but something that people can just actually watch and enjoy, and say that yes, there is a Night Living Dummy episode. It's just it's fan made. So yeah, Night Living Dummy is number one, only because, there's so many people out there that just don't know why it was never made. I question it too, but we kind of got an answer not too long ago. I think it was maybe like a year or two ago, where apparently they just looked at it and went, "Oh, this looks too hard," and they moved on. And I'm gonna say it's something to do with the vomit scene.
Well, it might be. I think there was. It might have been that. I think it was just. I don't remember what the reasoning was. It was.
Slappy became the mascot by the time Goosebumps.
It was considered, but they just said we would rather go with the second one because Slappy's more prominent. I think that's what they said. But there was never a script made. I think we talked to somebody because we asked. It was like, is it?
We did.
We asked. It was like,
we asked not only Alan Doucette, but we asked Ron Stefanik if he was told to make a Mr. Wood or anything. He's like, nope. He was like, I was only ever told Slappy, and He's like,
So-
my liberties were pretty loose with that, so that's why he's a ginger.
But I think it was
and
Alan
also-
that said
but-
there was no script
but it was
made.
mostly, there was mostly Alan.
No
I think
outline.
Ron a little. Can't remember, but definitely Alan.
Well, and Ron
Okay.
Oliver too. Ron Oliver, he directed Night of the Living Dummy 2, and I think he
Yeah.
told us.
Because we asked them how they go about their process of picking books to make adaptations into episodes, and if that ever came across, their desk or whatever. And I think I think if I remember right, he said that he vaguely remembers that one coming across, but he's like, there was something to it that they just didn't want to adapt it into an episode. They felt that the second one would make a better one,
Mhm.
and they just went with the second one. So it really had nothing, I don't think, to do with something they couldn't do in the first book. At least according to them, it was just more or less the second one was just seemed like it would be better adaptation for a show at the time.
Yeah,
If I remember correct. That interview was a while back.
like I said,
It's
like
kind of boring the first one for a good portion of it.
yeah,
Like it takes forever. Like when it takes off, it takes off. Like it's good the moment that things start actually happening. But yeah, it's a slow beginning. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings Fellowship, where it starts really slow, but then it's so good when the Fellowship starts, and then Two Towers and Return of the King were just like amazing, right?
well, yeah.
The same here.
But yeah, I mean, we talked to Ron Oliver because he directed Night of the Living Dummy 2 because we asked him, and he just said, we looked at it, we considered it, but we just felt the second one was better, so we skipped over to it. And he was like, "There's never a script made. He said if there's no script made, then an episode doesn't get made." So, and anybody saying that
They saw it. Oh,
yeah,
I
that
actually
you saw it. You didn't see it. That's a straight lie. If you hear anybody saying that they saw it, or there's like a version that was unaired, or it was like a lost episode, it was never made at all. So don't believe the lies.
Watch, here come the hashtags. Release the Oliver cut. Like the Snyder
The
cut
Oliver
stuff. Release the Oliver cut. It was made.
Yeah.
I know. I saw it.
Yeah,
Well-
it's iconic as it is. The cover art. I mean, it's on more Goosebumps T-shirts than anything. The second one's better. Second
Definitely.
one's better.
But I can't say I'm surprised that that was your number one. Oh no,
Well, I was putting this at 1, and then I said this is only going as 1, so that it's just like I just want it to be done. I want it to be over with. I want it to be like, just make the damn episode, release it for all the kids, and say, here it is.
Again,
This
grain of salt
done.
on your list.
grain of salt. Great.
It's
But
subject to
salt.
change. Grain of
Realistically,
salt
I
on
wanted-
that list.
What if
bro.
it comes out and it's like that one video, that Slappy's Rivals video, and Slappy's just annoying the shit out of Mr. Wood. He's like, "Okay, so you better back off, all right?" Oh, what the fuck?
But yeah, hard can't judge him. Realistically, that's like, I want that more than, of course, you want your favorite book.
Down to
Watch the person who said that they saw that. Like, I saw Night of the Living Dummy. Watch it. They actually just watched that episode.
They probably did. But you know what they probably watched? They probably watched Night of the Living Dummy 2. They probably watched the second one and saw the red-headed doll and went, "Oh, I saw one." And I just think, no, you didn't.
Honestly, it's just weird that they called the episode Night of the Living Dummy 2. Like, I feel like it's weird because then you have the third one, but that's based off the third book, so you can't call it Night of the Living Dummy 2 because it's not 2, it's 3. But 2 was already made, so you know what I mean. But for that one, you could have just called it Night of the Living Dummy, excluded the 2, and probably nobody would have told the difference.
No, well, remember the old TV ad when they promoted it? They said, "Watch Night of the Living Dummy" on a brand new episode. They didn't say 2. They just said, "Watch Night of the Living Dummy."
They also called them the Davis family, and Slappy had like a, "Hey there, family, nice to see you."
Yeah,
God, his
So
voice
weird.
in the commercials was so bad.
maybe
It's
people
like,
saw that little ad and went, "Yeah, I watched it, the original." Like, yeah, all right.
And just Mr. Wood being like, "He went down to the fiery depths Depths of hell. That would be great. Somebody should.
But yeah, I agree. It
make
didn't
that.
get made because by the time they made Night of the Living Dummy 2, all the merch had already come out with Slappy on it. So it was like they were like, nah, was just he was the popular one from that moment on. It didn't matter. You know, there's only one piece of merch that has Mr. Wood on it, and it's a t-shirt. What's your number one, Nick? Oh, I know what it is.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, well,
It's only
you know,
because
Bjorn
chicken-
had his Slappy pick as number one. I do wonder what your number one could be, Nick. I say,
Well, I mean, clearly my number one pick.
is Chicken again.
Turkey.
Yeah.
Turkey.
Yeah, no, it's Turkey. What we wish we could have got made, you know, the what ifs of this world. Like Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns 2. I wish we got a sequel book to that.
Like go eat
but, you know,
worms
whatever.
again and say cheese and die again and
Again. More and more tales to give you goosebumps.
more say cheeses and dies. All right, what's your number one?
The
No,
Scarecrow
actually,
works
my
at
number
1 p.m.
Scream of the Haunted Mask. I mean, obviously,
Oh, what a surprise.
Haunted Mask, brother. Halloween story, Haunted Mask. Yeah. How could I not? Plus, I mean, honestly, like I said, overall, it's a really good story. I didn't much care for how it ended, but oh well, like I said, when it gets changed into a TV adaptation, it could have changed the ending, could have changed parts that weren't as good, just like they did with Haunted Mask 2. So I would have been all about seeing the two Catherines back and Amos and whatever, you know, however they want to write that story up. But Haunted Mask has got to be my number one, of course. Like it wasn't obvious, but I'm just saying.
We all knew what your
It was
number
quite
was.
clear.
You didn't know shit, okay? You don't know me.
Whoa, I had a hunch. I had a feeling in my bones.
In my curly bones.
But it's very
Yeah,
interesting.
well,
I mean, we all had certainly different ideas on what we would have liked to see for episodes. Nick, you especially delved a lot into the Give Yourself Goosebumps, which was pretty interesting. But I think what we all take away from today's discussion is that they left a lot of good shit on the table back in the 90s.
X.
And again, you know, as we mentioned, this is all sake of argument. Some of these I do believe maybe were considered. I know, as we said before, Abominable Snowman was considered as an episode, but it didn't get made due to budget reasons. There was going to be more books based off or episodes based off Tales to Give You Goosebumps. So it's just a shame that so many stories were left unadapted. And hopefully with the new Disney Plus series, they can sort of rectify some of that and bring some of these lesser known books to the table. It seems like they might be doing that with like Egg Monsters from Mars and a few others, but it's time for some of those to get their spot in the sunlight.
Maybe it's not Stand in the Basement. Maybe it's your food.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, you know, with them saying that this season is going to be an anthology, unlike the first season that they brought out, we'll see.
You'll never know.
My expectations are not high, and I am not 100% on board with a season 2 yet.
This is the bar.
Just because of how burned I was in the first season for clickbait titles and everything we've talked about before. But you know, I want to remain optimistic and hopeful, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
maybe we'll get some of these stories we're talking about today.
The only way to know is to see, so we'll definitely see. But that is going to do it for not only our lists, but tonight's episode of the Goosebumps Crew Podcast. As always, make sure you check out Bjorn and Nick at their social medias and their YouTubes at Goosebumps Sauce Van and Sean, respectively. And make sure, if you like today's episode, you leave a like and comment, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, follow us on our audio platforms and social medias. All those links are in the description below, so check them out. Guys, it is the first week of October, so that means GooseTober is officially up and running, and we're going to have many more Halloween treats in store for you guys as the month progresses, so make sure you stay tuned. But until we meet again, this has been the Goosebumps Crew Podcast, and from all of us here, we want to wish you, as always, to take care, stay safe, and have a very scary day.